This is Rick Cromie, and welcome to Oral Communication. Alexander Gregg once said there are three things to aim at in public speaking. First, to get into your subject, then to get your subject into yourself, and lastly, to get your subject into the heart of your audience. And he is dead on. That's absolutely correct. If you want to reach your audience, if you want to speak with purpose, if you want to speak with power, if you want to speak with passion, you've got to get into your subject. As a speaker, your role is to tell others about your ideas and occasionally persuade them to take some action. Your audience is going to be a whole lot more receptive to your efforts if you take the time to assemble your thoughts in a logical manner, which is why this week I want to teach you about how to organize your speech. Well-organized speeches have several benefits, many benefits, but here's just a few for the audience. First of all, an organized speech is easier to understand. Your audience wants to know what your speech is about and the point you're trying to make. A well-organized speech helps them to do that. Secondly, it's easier to remember an organized speech. A well-organized speech enables the audience to better identify and remember the points that you made. Third, it's more credible. Speakers who take the time to carefully organize their presentations are perceived as more knowledgeable and believable than those who just give rambling, disjointed speeches. I think that's true whether or not you're a speaker or a teacher or a preacher or even a professor. If you're organized in the giving of your presentation, in the delivery of your subject and your topic, you're going to come off as being more credible. And then it's also just simply more enjoyable. Audiences appreciate presentations and speeches and messages that are thoughtfully crafted and lead them step by step from the beginning to the end. Organizing your speech also helps you. It also is a huge benefit to you. When you plan the points you want to make and the order in which you want to present them, you will be less likely to forget anything, and your presentation will be more effective. So how do you do that? Well, first of all, before we can ever start thinking about organizing the speech, we have to start by selecting a topic. Novice speakers sometimes find this very difficult. The world is full of possible speech topics, though. I mean, just look out your window and notice all the topics that are out there right now. As I look out my window, I see I could talk about trees. I could talk about sky. I could talk about grass that needs mowed. I could give a story about the grass that needs mowed. There's all sorts of topics out there. I could talk about a warm day and how a warm day makes me feel. There's so many memories that are connected to warm days, and I could share a story or an anecdote. It's very important to select a topic. Your challenge is to select the best one for you and your audience. Do you hear me? Your best topic is not just going to be one that you can't wait to share, but also one that your audience can't wait to hear. Finding a topic doesn't require special ability or long hours of research or thought. It just, consider, for example, just some of the discussions you've had recently with some of your friends or coworkers. What are people talking about? Give a speech on something like that. Maybe there's a magazine or newspaper or website article or blog or something that has attracted your interest. There's an event. Perhaps it's just your experience on certain topics. Maybe you know quite a bit about playing football, or you know quite a bit about personal computing, or you have a wealth of information about a particular style of music. Talk about those things. Or it can just be everyday experiences. Share a story about going shopping or, driving to school or driving to work and some of the things that you saw along the way. Talk about family relationships. If you study great comics, one of the things you'll learn about them is all they do is talk about stuff that we experience every day.
That's actually what I love about traveling, is when I'm on the road, I eat whatever I want. So when I'm home, my wife's like, I want you to eat healthy. And I explain to her, no. And here's my rationalization. If you eat healthy, you live longer. But as Christians, this world is not our home. That's right. I have a message. Have a Twinkie for Jesus. I have a message. Eat sugar, see God. I have a message.
Eventually, as you become more experienced as a speaker, you're going to encounter a number of different situations that are going to cause you to think, wow, that would make a good speech topic. That's when you write down those ideas and you file them. You can refer to them later. I mean, I have a pad and a pen, or actually now I use my iPad to constantly jot down ideas that I want to write about or I want to speak about. Sometimes I'll hear somebody say something, or maybe I'll craft something on Facebook as a status update that will just, open up. It will be later a speech topic. One of the things you want to be careful about is not having too broad of a topic, though. For example, instead of talking about sports, a general topic, narrow the subject down to kids in sports, or more specific still, children gymnastics. I don't know. Remember, you're going to be speaking for only a few minutes, and you're going to need all that time to fully develop a single facet of the larger subject. Be sure your topic is timely and relevant to your audience. So unless you're speaking to a bunch of children or parents of gymnasts, maybe that's not necessarily a good topic. In the fall, you can talk about football. In the spring, talk about baseball. In the winter, talk about basketball. You see how you talk to the topics that are going to be in your audience's mind. And once you know your topic, determine the point that you want to make. If the topic is children's sports, for example, do you want to convince the listeners that the adults are making children's sports too competitive? Maybe that's the point you want to make. Do you want to entertain your audience with funny stories about your child's soccer team? You have to know what you plan to do. What is your overall goal? Is it to persuade? Is it to inform? Is it to entertain? All these are very important. Second, then, let's talk about making an outline, because that's the next step in preparing your speech and to logically get it to work. You have to logically assemble your ideas into a sequence that will help you achieve your objective. And let me just tell you, there's no best way to organize your speech. There are several different ways to organize, and the method that you use or choose often depends on the topic you select and your objective. For example, if you're going to give a chronological speech, maybe history or a story that goes back into history, and the topic is arranged by time. For example, in a speech about your town's upcoming centennial celebration, you would begin with details about its founding, followed by information about its growth over the years, then its current status. Or your speech could describe steps in a process, such as a speech about the 5 steps in making a career change. Another type of topic is spatial. This type of speech follows a direction. For example, in a speech about planting a flower garden, you could first discuss low-growing flowers appropriate for the front of a garden, followed by slightly taller flowers suitable for the center of the garden, then followed by the very end, those taller flowers that are appropriate for the rear of the garden. So you talk from a spatial perspective. Maybe it's causal. This type of speech shows us cause and effect relationships. Often the effect is discussed first, then the cause. So a speech about hurricanes describes how a hurricane is formed and its destructiveness fits, or how its destructiveness fits into an organizational pattern. Maybe you want to compare. You compare and contrast different proposals or plans, usually to persuade the audience that one plan or proposal is better. Another type of speech, again, is topical. This speech splits the main topic into subtopics. For example, a speech about changing radio program could address 3 different types of programming. You got music, you got news, and you got talk shows. Or maybe you want to deal with a problem and solution. In this case, you present a problem that needs to be solved and a solution to that problem. And this type of organization is effective if you're trying to motivate your audience to take some kind of action. Well, once you have an outline, you then want to develop an opening. And we talked about this in your icebreaker, that it's important to have an opening, a body, and a conclusion to every single speech. And the opening should immediately catch the audience's attention and tell the audience what you're going to be talking about. And let me add that I really believe a good opening is one that captures the heart of the audience. A lot of speakers miss that. You know, we go out there and you'll see speakers that go out there and they immediately start with a content dump. It's not about the head to begin with. It's about the heart. What you want to do in your first few seconds, your first minute, your first few minutes that you have as a speaker on that topic is you want to get the audience to feel empathy or sympathy perhaps on that particular topic. So you might start an opening with a startling question or a challenging statement. Or it might be an appropriate quotation, illustration, or story, such as what I did to start this particular session. You might display an object or a picture. You might have an attention-getting generalization that ties in with your subject. Let me just also give you some weak openings to avoid. Avoid starting with an apology. I mean, don't get up there and the first thing you say is, boy, I'm really sorry. You know, don't apologize. Don't start with a joke or a story that doesn't relate to your topic. Now, a lot of speakers can get away with this because they're giving very long messages, and sometimes in the opening they have what they call fluff time. I call it fluff time. And if you're giving a 50-minute talk or if you're speaking on a Sunday morning in a message sermon, you know, you have a few minutes there of what I call fluff time. But in your case, you're not going to have that type of time. You need to immediately get in and get going with your topic, with your subject. So if you're going to tell a story or a joke, make sure it relates to your topic. A long, slow-moving statement or story. Let me tell you about what happened to me last week. You can see how that just, it kills the audience's connection with you. Or maybe, you know, even a trite question. They're just weak. It's just, those are weak openings. You know, where did you ever stop to think? Well, every time I think, I'm really stopping, am I not? See, that's a trite question. All right, now let's talk about drafting the body. The body is the main part of your speech, and it consists of the facts or the ideas you want to present. So the amount of information you include in the body will be limited naturally by the time that you have available to you and how much the audience can really remember. Remember, it's not about a content dump. In the end, what you want to do is hopefully inspire your audience to want to study and know more about your topic. They hopefully walk away going, I have more questions. I have more things I want to learn about this. As opposed to, you know, well, that was quite the dump there. I feel like I've just been hit with a, you know, fire hydrant full of information. Most listeners will remember only 3 to 5 main ideas or facts. And so for a 5 to 7 minute talk, 3 facts or ideas are plenty. In fact, this is one of the things that you're going to learn or would learn if you studied, as I have, the presentation style of Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple. Steve Jobs, when he was a master speaker and a master presenter, people from all around the world would come to hear him speak and to just sit in and listen to him just share what the latest technology is. It wasn't about the stuff. It was about hearing Steve Jobs. He was that fascinating to listen to. And Steve Jobs had a very basic approach, and one of them is that he reduced every one of his messages into 3 points with triads of information beneath each point. So he didn't give too much, and he kept with 3. And that's kind of important when you think about it because, you know, our minds naturally gravitate. 3 becomes kind of a whole number when you think about it. If I say there's one first thing here and then the second thing, your mind naturally thinks, well, what's the third thing? There's just something about our mind going, well, what's the third thing? On the other hand, if you go 1, 2, 3, and this is what many preachers make this mistake, Then you start adding 4 and 5 and 6. The minute you go beyond 3, you start adding too much. And the mind starts to go, oh, too much. They start to shut down. There's just something about how we process information that says if you stick to 3, you're going to win every time. Stick to 3. So, what facts or ideas do you want to convey? You may find it helpful to write down all of those related to your topic on small note cards, using 1 card per idea or fact, or 1 sentence per idea or fact. Then select the 3 best or most important facts or ideas. Kind of boil it down. These will be the main facts or the ideas that you will present. Arrange them in the order that will most effectively present your message. For example, if you're writing a speech about the benefits of eating fruits and vegetables, the 3 main points you could select are, well, number 1, eating fruits and vegetables provides nutrients your body needs to function. 2, eating fruits and vegetables protects against the effects of aging. And 3, eating fruits and vegetables reduces the risk of cancer and heart disease. The next step in developing the body of your speech is to elaborate on each main point with subpoints. A subpoint clarifies, emphasizes, or proves the idea or fact it supports. Subpoints make the speech more interesting and helps listeners remember the main point or your idea that you're trying to get across. For example, a subpoint for point number 1 that we just talked about would be they contain carbohydrates, proteins, and fats the body uses to generate energy or build cells. That's why eating fruits and vegetables are so important. It provides those nutrients. And, well, how does that happen? So then you go looking for supporting material for that particular fact. Maybe you might give some statistics, some information about incidents or data or events. Maybe you might have a testimony, quotes or opinions from people with expertise on the matter. Maybe you would have some examples or stories or anecdotes that these are situations that usually relate to the event that happened to you, or maybe someone you know, or someone you've read about, or visual aids. Maybe you're going to prove your point using diagrams or charts or pictures, models, or other objects. We're going to talk more about this in a later session. And then finally, just basic facts. Facts are verifiable information. Whatever support method you choose, make sure it is relevant to the point you are making. And that's key. All right. And now let's take a look at the conclusion. The conclusion is your final opportunity to convey your message and main points in a manner that helps the audience remember them. It should reinforce your ideas and leave listeners with a lasting impression. If you're informing the listeners, you could also conclude with a summary of the ideas presented in the body of the speech. If you're persuading or motivating the audience to take some action, you could suggest a course of action listeners could take. You could then conclude with a final remark, such as a challenge, question, anecdote, or quotation. Occasionally, as you deliver the conclusion, you may remember something you forgot to say earlier. Resist the temptation to talk about it now, even if it comes to mind. Just resist that temptation, because introducing new material in the closing may confuse the audience. You're landing the plane right now. Finally, don't apologize again for anything you may or may not have done or said during your talk. Finish forcefully and confidently. The reason it's important not to apologize is because the audience doesn't necessarily know. I hear speakers do this all the time. They'll apologize and they'll say something to the effect, well, I wish I would have had this, or my PowerPoint isn't working today, and if it was, this is what you would see. Anytime you say those types of things, anytime you make those types of statements, those statements are not necessary because the audience doesn't know that they exist. They exist to you, but to the audience, it's non-matter. It's non-functioning. It's not an issue. All right, let me just give you a thought here about transitions, and then we'll be done. Audiences need help in moving smoothly from one topic to the another. And transitions provide these valuable bridges, and that's exactly what they are. They help the audience to follow the ideas being presented and to see the relationship of those ideas. Transitions usually are used as you move from speech introduction to the body, from a main point to a subpoint, from a subpoint to support material, from support material to another main point, and from the last support material to the conclusion. Transitions can be words or phrases, statements or questions. I like to write out my transitions personally. I like to write them out and sometimes even memorize them. I want to know where I'm going and what needs to be said. Some transitional words are words like afterward or also, but, consequently, consider, finally, instead, later, meanwhile, moreover, next, then, yet. Say those words. Some transitional phrases are, well, according to, as a result, for example, for instance, in addition, let's begin with, more importantly, this means, to illustrate. Some transitional statements or questions are, if this program is so valuable, why is everyone resisting it? We must consider three things in developing this new product. First is, second is, third is. Okay, for this week, guess what? No speech. I actually want you to spend some time looking at other speaking, though. And what I want you to do is go to what's called TED Talks, www.ted.com. And I want you to watch a minimum of 15 minutes. Now, this could be one speech, one presentation, and you can tell the time limit right there, or it can be two. A lot of times you can have shorter ones of 6 to 9 minutes. Watch two, but I want you to watch a minimum of 15 minutes. If you want to watch more than that, that's great, but watch at least two. And these TED Talks can be any topic of your choice, but what I want you to do as you're studying them, as you listen to the speaker, I want you to look at their style of speaking, and I want you to look at how they organize their topic according to what we just talked about. How do they organize their topic? And then I want you to write a reaction, 750-word minimum, and try to stay under 1,000. But just to write a reaction about what you learned and what was surprising to you, or this was interesting, and how this person made the topic come alive, whatever it might be. Okay, that's what I want you to do. Secondly, I also want you to develop now a complete outline for your final speech. And that final speech is coming up here in a few weeks. So it's important for you right now to start be thinking about what's going to be your topic, what's going to be your outline. So you should have at least 3 main points. I would suggest you keep it to 3 main points. I would like to see at least 3 subpoints beneath each one, and then some supporting material that you might use to prove the subpoints or prove the main point. Okay. I'd also like to see a little bit of what you're thinking about for the introduction and obviously the conclusion. And if you get to the point where you want to add more than that, you can always add in some transition sentences, but I'm not looking for transition sentences per se. Right now, I'm just looking for an outline of your final speech. All right? Well, I'm looking at my time, and it has expired. And one of the things I've learned in speaking is that the mind can only absorb what the seat can endure. So we're going to call it a day, and I look forward to seeing you online.